Hello, and welcome to episode 12 of Expertise is Overrated, the podcast that takes the time to answer the questions you didn't know you didn't want the answer to. I'm Vib.
And I'm Sean, and neither of us has any clue what we're talking about. Before we get to the episode, let's award the much vaunted Expertise is Overrated Tinfoil Award.
Now, as a reminder, this is an award that we give out at the start of each episode to the person who had the most ridiculous point in last week's episode.
And this week, who's getting it?
Yeah, I can already hear you giggling.
I'm not giggling, I'm
Laughing.
quietly chortling, I think, is what's happening here.
Victorious, because you've managed to somehow not say anything stupid for like the past 3 weeks, is it?
I mean, I would assert that I've never said anything stupid, but no, this week,
no one will believe you there.
Quite solidly landed with Vib for just fundamentally not understanding how the laws of inheritance anywhere in any fiction work.
I mean, sure.
Finwë is the heir to the throne of Gondor. I mean, okay, you set the scene for a hot take by calling back to my hot take, which was good. I appreciated that. But no, that's just stupid on so many levels, I fear.
Well, unfortunately, we can never ask the Tolkiens, can we? So we'll never know. But no, it is, you know.
We do know, to be clear, we do know.
All right. Well, hopefully I can give the shiny hat back to you soon, because it's starting to weigh a little heavy on my head.
Not a chance.
Anyway, what are we up to today?
Well, this is the second of our patented Hot Take Awards. So, as a reminder, the format will be slightly different. Rather than our usual brand of rating or talking about stuff we know nothing about, in a hot take, one of us will present an unusual or unpopular way of looking at a well-known fictional situation. The other will attempt to sit quietly and let them explain their probably flawed reasoning before inevitably losing their cool and the episode descending into petty name-calling.
Quite right. The sitting quietly will be a challenge for you, I am sure. So, as you can probably tell, as a recent winner of many tinfoil hats, I've taken it upon myself to prove that I am unworthy, or perhaps actually worthy, of them by coming up with our second ever hot take. Are you ready?
I don't know anyone is ever really ready.
Are you prepared to just stall
I'm
out?
sitting down, put it that way.
Okay. So, here it is. Lara Raith is a good person. So before we get stuck in, let me tell you who I'm even talking about. If you don't know, please still stick around, as I strongly suspect this hot take will veer wildly into the realms of morality, humanity, and quite clearly a lot of nonsense. We are discussing Lara Raith of the Dresden Files. She's a relatively major character whom we first meet in Blood Rights, the 6th book of the series. As her name suggests, she belongs to House Raith, one of the 3 major houses in the White Court of Vampires. Now, Harry Dresden isn't particularly fond of vampires, but he does get on with the White Court more so than the Red or Black Courts. This makes some kind of sense, given that the White Court are the most human of the 3 and aren't all batshit insane. However, my co-host and fellow idiot is firmly of the belief that Lara Raith and presumably all other White Court vampires are heinous, vile, and dreadful monsters. Would you agree with that, Sean?
I don't know that I like you putting words in my mouth, but for the sake of giving you enough rope with which to hang yourself, sure.
Yeah, you can disagree with me later. I mean, you're of course wrong, quite wrong. But then that's nothing new on this show. Lara Raith is a hero. Lara Raith is a good person by any meaningful standard of morality, and ultimately Lara Raith is quite simply a delight. Now I'd like to start, as all good stories do, with Reddit. Redditor That Swift Boy succinctly summarizes everything you need to know. He says, "You know, she may be a White Court vampire, someone who feeds on the life energy of her victims through their sensation of lust. She might be a parasitic monster who abrogates a person's ability to choose. She might be an evil, scary bitch with a damn good mind and ability to think stupidly long term, which is an utterly terrifying combination. But after listening to Harry describe her office, I have to admit that she has one point in her favour over most of the monsters of the Dresden verse. She pays postage and uses lettered mail. She might be out to rule over all of us mortals, but damn, at least she writes people. That'd keep me employed. Of course, I jest. I just thought this was quite an amusing post. But while ultimately writing letters is commendable, it's by far the least humane thing Lara Raith does. You/That Swift Boy raises an important issue, though. White Court vampires stay alive and healthy by feeding on the life energy of humans. Well, Vib, I hear that smug Sean voice that has taken a permanent residence in my head say, there you have it. She's bad like the rest of her kind. As Jedi Grandmaster Yoda would say, shitball. It's simplistic and frankly idiotic to judge someone purely on the basis of what they do, nay, need to do, to survive. Sure, having to live on human life energy perhaps doesn't quite fit into your perfect little world, but can we really blame Lara and her kin for wanting to survive? Instead, view it for what it is, another thread that makes up the rich tapestry of life. Importantly, it's incredibly rare that we see Lara kill people if it can be avoided. Notable exceptions are in Turncoat, where some guards who got a bit too close to Shag Nasty were allowed to perform one last noble act in order to save some of Lara's sisters. Did they need to die? Perhaps not, but sometimes sacrifices must be made. But murder! I hear you gasping and spluttering in your most indignant voice. Well, are you a vegan? I thought not. Stop anthropomorphizing and wake up to the fact that not every sentient being in the world is human, and we have to make allowances for specific, if unusual, and at least for us, awkward diets. After all, does a cow think of you as a monster, or does it accept the circle of life like Mufasa and his cartoon subjects did? Now, I'd go for a really punchy statement, but I have to caveat this one slightly, so I'll settle for Lara Raith is as humane as most of us. Still with me so far?
I'm frantically taking notes, but I keep stopping because my pen is allergic to writing the nonsense that's coming out of your mouth. Please continue.
Indeed I will. Now, continuing with my old school, totally unpretentious academic style, I provide you with a quote from Lara herself, if I may. And given that I have the proverbial floor, I think you can't stop me anyway. Picture the scene, a Harry Dresden at the point of breaking, at wit's end, in dire need of support and love. Enter Lara Raith. I can take away the pains of the mind and the body and the heart. I can give you something no one else can. Freedom from your burdens of responsibility and conscience. Sweet Dresden, I could give you peace. Imagine closing your eyes with no worries, no pain, no fears, no regrets, no appetites, and no guilt. Only quiet darkness and stillness and my flesh against yours. I can give you that. You wear your pain like a suit of armor, but one day it'll be too heavy to bear, and you will remember this moment, and you will know who can give you what you need. Now, need I even say more? These are clearly the words of a kind and caring person doing her utmost to look out for our intrepid hero. Is hero the right word? That's a discussion for another time, probably in about 15 minutes or so. But to me, anyway, it's quite clear, my friends, Lara Raith cares. Now, I know what you're going to say in your most outraged voice, dear listener. Yes, you, because I'm fairly certain that Sean has probably stormed off by now. But Vib, I can concede that some diets are just necessary, but she's a vampire, and they're just evil. Everyone knows that. Well, shame on you, listener. Vampires are no more or less evil than a random bloke on the street, and it's just by virtue of your arrogant humanity that you would jump to such a simplistic conclusion. It's xenophobia. Don't pretend otherwise.
Xenophobia?
Indeed. For example, have you forgotten Matt Thomas? Or are we throwing sanity out the window and saying he's evil too, purely because he's got an internal demon to contend with? I ask you, dear listener, don't we all have our demons? Thomas is a testament to the goodness that some members of our species can exhibit if they try. And yes, before you say it, I am in fact human. But funnily enough, Thomas is not fully human, and he's probably amongst the best of us. Thomas always strives to be the best version he can be, and ignores his demon with a tenacity that is both admirable and instructive. He's proof that being a White Court vampire does not mean you become a monster. In fact, he demonstrates that for the right cause, we can all keep our demons at bay, if perhaps not overcome them entirely. Yes, I know what you're thinking. This is not about Thomas. Of course he's good. But his succubus sister is a different story altogether. Thomas, I hear you screaming internally, doesn't kill people to survive. Thomas, I hear you furiously formulating into a strongly worded letter, loves. Ah, doesn't he just? I'm glad you mentioned that, dear listeners. Love is such a positive emotion, or so I am told. Lara Raith is capable of love. She's utterly devoted to protecting her loved ones. In spite of her father's wishes, she helped her younger sister Inari find true love, allowing her to expel her demon and live, we hope, a happy life instead of becoming another one of Papa Raith's pawns. Now, a quick sidebar. I've been getting into chess quite a fair bit recently, and if there was ever a personification of a pawn queening, it's Lara Raith. Anyway, there's no tactical advantage to protecting Inari. It's an act of kindness, wrought from a desire to spare her sister from the curse that Lara and the rest of her family battle with every single day. Not yet convinced? Fine. In the very same book, and I do recommend you guys go back and reread White Knight, it truly is excellent, Lara makes a promise to her beloved brother that she would protect Justine, his paramour. This supposedly evil vampire willingly offers protection to a vanilla Kine. Wow. Empty Knight. She even took care of a young and helpless Thomas. She changed his nappies and everything. Why would a heartless, uncaring, evil monster do such a thing? I'll tell you why. Because she's none of these things. She is good at heart. Lara Raith loves.
Please just finish.
Oh, not anywhere near there yet. All right. Calm down. I can practically hear you screaming with Zoomer levels of fury, dear listener. But she's cold and calculating. Everything she does for personal gain. Okay, so why does she repeatedly keep other people's secrets? As an example, she knew full well that Ebenezer McCoy was Thomas and Harry's grandfather. This is powerful information, yet she keeps it to herself. She is one of a few who knows about Harry and Murph as well. She keeps that to herself too. Does she use any of this to her advantage in some way? No. In fact, she congratulates Harry and is pleased for him that he's finally found love again after all this time. This is not the first time she's kept secrets to the benefit of others. When Harry goes to rescue his daughter Maggie from the hands of the Red Court, who sends in the rescue squad in the form of a US Navy cruiser and helicopter? Lara does. Who offers up her family money to help Molly and Harry in cold days? Lara does. Who offers up her significant influence, finances, and power to the Paranetters, Murph, and co? Lara does. This one in particular shows off her unbelievably good side. She doesn't need to help the humans, and the wizards fend off the odd Fomor attack. It's nothing large scale, after all. She could just sit back, amass her own power, and help when shit really hits the fan. But no, after the fall of the Reds, Lara makes sure her court helps people. Nobody who is evil would do such a thing. Now, even before all this, Lara spends a lot of political capital and puts herself and her family in severe danger by openly suing for peace between the White Court of Vampires and the White Council of Wizards. As you know, the White Council went to war with vampires because, well, Harry's Harry. But ultimately, the war wasn't going great for our mortal wizard friends. Although why exactly that is the subject of another debate. Suffice it to say, there was no compelling reason for the vamps to ease up on their enemies, but Lara decided that fighting the wizards was no good thing. She managed to see what you could not. She managed to see mortals and immortals alike perishing in a pointless war, so she sued for peace. Sued for peace in a winning war. That, dear listeners, is the act of a good person. So Lara Raith is good.
It's like you've just departed reality.
Oh no, I'm still very much here. But it sounds like you still need more. Well, good thing there's plenty more to say. One obvious point I haven't really mentioned is that we have Lara to thank for ridding the world of her father's influence. Papa Raith, I'm sure we can all agree, is a genuinely evil being. but thankfully we won't have to worry about him any longer. Now granted, this one is not necessarily down to Lara being a good person, as overthrowing her father is a direct political gain. But it's still worth mentioning purely because fuck Papa Raith.
Yeah, fair.
Now, so in White Knight, when Uberghouls threaten to kill her and her family, she does not take the opportunity to escape. I say opportunity, I imagine there were many for one so agile. Instead, she bravely hangs around, even helping Dresden at the very end. And if that wasn't enough, she is a long-time member of the Venatori Umbrorum, the ultimate guardians who've been fighting the Oblivion War for centuries. The Archive, Ivy to her friends, oversees all things Venatori and apparently has no issue whatsoever with Lara being one. If a 14-year-old girl can see the good in her, so can you. It's clear that instead of calling Lara a monster, we should in fact be thanking her for keeping us safe in our beds. Lara Raith is a hero. I mean, all of this, I'm pretty sure, is entirely convincing. But I would be remiss if I didn't include the views of another paragon of virtue and the ultimate upholder of law and order in the supernatural world. That's right, you guessed it, probably from Sean's exasperated sigh in the background. Mab, queen of air and darkness herself. Would Mab be so foolish as to risk her night, the winter night she spent so long ensnaring, politely persuading?
I'm glad you're happy with yourself.
That was a slight Freudian slip there. Now, it must be said, if you got this far, the ship has probably sailed, but spoiler warning for Battlegrounds, the current book in the series. Right at the end, Mab declares that Harry and Lara are to be wed. Now, Mab is no fool, far from it, and woe betide you should you say otherwise. I'm told Arctis Tor is cold in winter. I would be amazed if Mab decided to risk her precious night by forcing increased proximity between him and an evil nutcase. The decision to unite Harry and Lara proves beyond doubt that Lara is an important person in the grand scheme of things. It proves that Lara is trustworthy. Above all, I believe that Mab, who has shown more than a fair bit of admiration for Harry, is telling us, dear listeners, that Lara is a good person. A person worthy of Harry Dresden, the hero of our tale. Lara Raith has Mab's seal of approval. So there we are, dear listeners. If you still think that Lara is some sort of evil monster, then frankly only the archangels themselves can help you. And let's be honest, they seem to have their fingers in all the pie, so they might very well do exactly that. In any case, I shall wrap up by simply saying, Lara Raith cares. Lara Raith loves. Lara Raith is a hero. Lara Raith is a good person by any meaningful standard of morality. And ultimately, Lara Raith is quite simply a delight. Now, Sean, if you're still there, thoughts?
Okay, 1 second. I need to put down the bottle of whiskey that I've been necking.
Even whiskey can't save you from the truth.
Okay, so no, 1,000 times no. What is wrong with you? We need to get you help.
Should I just start again? Because you clearly weren't listening.
No, I don't think that any of that ever needs said. Right. So
what in particular do you take issue?
I think my core issue. I'm gonna split it into perhaps 4 problems, although they probably overlap, and I'm going to get lost halfway through.
Excellent.
Right. So you have your argument of necessity, which I don't think stands up. I think there is a meaningful distinction to be drawn between Thomas and Lara, which you have willfully ignored. Likewise, I think there's a material distinction between self-interest and love, which you have willfully ignored, or, alternatively, you have fundamentally misunderstood the nature of the White Court of Vampires. And finally, I think you fundamentally misunderstand the influence that Harry Dresden has on the people around him.
Ooh, now that's an interesting one.
Right. So, firstly, and this is basically essentially coming back to your "are you a vegan" point, which, no, I love cow as much as the next person. But there is a meaningful... There is a distinction between and I'm not going to get into the rights and wrongs of vegetarian or veganism in this,
Oh, what a
but
shame.
Lara Raith eats people to stay alive. And on a fundamental level, that is what she does. And she does so knowingly and in full knowledge that she could not do that because Thomas successfully doesn't eat people to stay alive.
You see, but I knew you were going to mention this. But this is why it's entirely clear from the text that she does not often end up killing people.
It is 100% entirely not clear from the text.
They have thralls. They have people who willingly give themselves. And it's a waste of food if you could potentially get a refill to just finish the whole damn thing. They don't ever seem to do that. No, maybe under Papa Wraith, but not on the Lara.
No, you yourself acknowledge there are those guards in Turncoat.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because those guys, as I said, they got too close to Shagnasty.
They were
essentially dead.
No, they
may as well have been dead.
Essentially, one of them was entirely alive, save that he had lost vision. Now, I'm fairly sure there were a lot of blind people who would find the concept of them being essentially dead offensive. Like, it's just nonsense. Lara and her sisters suck the life force out of those people for no reason other than it is necessary and convenient for them to do so.
See, technically, we never actually find out if they die or not.
We know that they will die. The reactions of everyone, the reactions of everyone around them imply that they will die quite significantly.
There's nothing wrong with death. Things need to die for other things to live.
No, things need to die within their proper time.
Well, but what decides what proper time is?
But
what the powers that be?
Not Lara Raith.
Some might argue that might makes right, no?
Yeah, sure. If you want your argument to just be despotism,
I feel as someone who clearly is and openly is admitted to thinking that Grindelwald, for example, is absolutely right in his thinking, surely you'd be up there with saying this is a perfectly good use of human life.
Absolutely not. And don't misinterpret my words in such a way.
We have you on air saying it. In my head, anyway.
I yes and no, but that's not the purpose of this.
Go on.
I think the distinction between Thomas and Lara, I think, is bigger than you think it is. Right.
All right. No, this is a genuinely interesting point. So,
okay.
Why do you think that?
So the point about Thomas is that Thomas struggles with his nature as a White Court vampire. Right. We can see that struggle within him all the time. He considers himself a monster. Right. And part of that is because he knows what he must do and what he does do. Thomas, we're fairly sure, probably has killed people by feeding on them.
Yes.
Right, he is a White Court vampire, so it's in fact 100% true, because that's how one becomes a White Court vampire. The first feeding is always fatal, right?
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
So, by that logic, if you want to equate Thomas and Lara, Lara also needs to have that struggle. Lara, we see no evidence for any struggle. It was personal struggle within Lara.
We don't, but I'll tell you why that potentially is, and this is because the whole thing is written from the perspective of Harry Dresden, and he's an unreliable narrator, perhaps.
Absolutely.
And B, he obviously can't discuss stuff he doesn't know. Now, he's known Thomas for, throughout most of the series of the books. Doesn't he show up in the second one, third one?
Third
one, yeah. So he's known Thomas for quite a while, and at that point, Thomas is... It's hard to put a number on these things accurately, but he's at best 20 years older than Harry, I say?
I don't think he's quite that much older, but yeah.
Yeah, he's they're actually quite close in age, right? And obviously, Margaret Le Fay was their mother. So I think Harry has known Thomas for a good long while, and Thomas hasn't been a vampire for all that long. And you're right. He quite clearly struggles. He fights his nature. He has his ups and downs, don't we all? I think you're right in saying that it's therefore very hard to equate him to Lara, because we don't see her have that struggle. But we have to remember that she is significantly older. I mean, she knew Lucio from way back when, and I think it's very much...
Yeah. Lara talks of having been in Japan during the Meiji Restoration.
Exactly. So she is hundreds and hundreds of years old.
Mm-hmm.
And she is also the spawn of Papa Wraith. And as we know, he's got a really nasty habit of
Absolutely,
doing terrible things to his daughters.
Yes.
And, well, he murders his sons. So we don't know if when she was first a vampire that she rebelled against the nature, tried to fight it. And we don't know how much she was able to fight, with a full power Lord Raith constantly hanging over you. So while I agree with you that, yes, it's hard to equate the two, we don't have any evidence to suggest that she did not at some point.
No, but that, while true, that you're starting from a she must have done, whereas I think
I'm starting from a she could have done.
She could. I think my point is, know that she is freed from that influence, right? She's her own person. No, she shows no indications. No. Of wanting to change who she is. All she's doing is consolidating her power.
So I think that's unfair. Because she could quite easily go full psycho the way Lord Raith does and just put no price on life. She has lots of human employees.
Of course she does.
And she doesn't kill every time she feeds.
No.
Sure, she does. You mentioned it, she does. But she has some idea that's not the right way to go.
She fundamentally looks upon non-vampire humans as cattle. Right? She does not consider them worthy of doing anything other than providing one of a number of services to her.
Well, give me an example.
Her interactions with basically anyone other than her own kind.
She's just very tongue-in-cheek. Like that thing she says to Harry when he brings Ramirez along. Is he a present, Glorious?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking much more about the way it comes back to Turncoat, the way she handles the news of the death of some of the guards and the maiming of others. That
is not necessarily in any way different to what a military commander might do.
No, it is slightly different because a military commander wouldn't go, "Oh, that person's lost his eyes. Might as well put a bullet in the back of his head."
Maybe not in the 21st century. No, true.
But
she doesn't just do that. She does that to serve a purpose, to save a family.
Sure, but her.
Like, I get what you're saying, but this is the sort of the human-centric view that I'm trying to beat out of you.
But I am a human, and from a perspective of human morality, and I think from the perspective of any morality, looking upon other sapient beings, demonstrably capable of feeling emotions, longing, pain, suffering, whatever, as nothing more than cattle to serve your interest is morally reprehensible.
Oh, that would be, but I don't think that there's any evidence that she is like that.
The evidence is littered throughout the book. She looks upon humans as food, as cattle, and nothing more.
And yet you can't give me an example.
Because I don't have all of the books to hand.
Yeah. You couldn't find anything, could you? I mean, what I will say, and I mentioned this, she helps the Paranitas, she helps Murph, she helps all those people for apparently no benefit to herself.
But if you think about her behavior in White Knight, right? Because obviously it's implied that she set up the scheme in the first place, right? The Madrigal Scavos,
the Malvora
scheme, right? It's quite heavily implied that she's the one who puts that idea in everyone's head. Right?
Sure.
She puts in motion a scheme to advance her own interests, which results in the murder of dozens of women.
Mm-hmm.
Which is reprehensible.
Yeah, but by that logic, the White Council of Wizards, who are human, are also reprehensible.
Yes!
They do exactly the same sort of calculations.
Absolutely. But the argument isn't whether or not the White Council are good or bad. The argument is Lara good? And if you look at her actions, she's not.
I would disagree with that. I think, the means justify the end.
All right, Grindelwald.
That's the wrong way around, isn't it? The end justifies the means.
And justifies the means is exactly your assertion, and I don't think that's true. I think that the means are incredibly important.
Of course they're important.
The way in which you exercise power is far more important than the amount of power that you have.
But what are 12 dead people in the grand scheme of 8 billion humans, not to mention all the vampires and all the supernatural monsters in the world?
Their family and friends?
Who cares
Everything.
about the family and friends when everyone's dead? If you are convinced that by taking power in this manner, you can do good, it's a risk worth taking.
But that's not what the scheme is about, right? The scheme is not Lara taking power. Because at that point, Lara is de facto already Queen of the White Court.
Yes, but that power is being challenged by the arseholes that are the Malvora and the Scavers.
Yes, but...
Because they are genuinely reprehensible beings.
They are. By any metric, they are worse. I will...
I'm not going to disagree with you on that.
Fine, I will give you that. But I can't remember the exact rationale around, but it essentially... The way it was described implies that Lara had set up a situation in which either Harry takes out Malvora and Scavis, or Lara has engineered a scheme to make humanity weaker, so as to make them easier to feed upon in the future. That's the whole idea behind the scheme, right? That's not treating humanity as equals. It's treating humanity as cattle.
It's treating some part of humanity as food.
Which
ultimately they have to do. That's the thing. You can't get around that fact.
No, I can't get around that fact. But that doesn't change the fact that she willingly embraces that side of herself, as compared with Thomas.
Perhaps. But this is where I think that there might be just... Time will tell if she manages to change her ways sufficiently. Because she does change throughout the books. And I think even...
I'm not sure whether she does, you see. I don't know whether she changes or whether her relationship with Harry Dresden changes. And this was my fourth point, right? So...
But before we get on to that, I will say that there is a word of Jim, and I know we don't often rely on those, but because
Jim doesn't know what he's talking about.
In this case, Jim is the expert on the situation. And he himself says that he isn't sure if Lara's a bad being, I guess. He's convincing himself that she's good. He can see the change.
I'm not sure that we're taking the word of Jim on this, given that Jim also thinks that the Eye of Balor could destroy Uriel.
Yeah, after showing that it couldn't even destroy anyone, really. Let's be honest. Do we see it kill anything?
I mean, lots of
stuff in the background, right?
Yeah, lots of people that Harry's connected to.
Oh yeah,
which is pretty harrowing.
That's pretty harrowing, yeah.
Because he experiences 450 deaths at once, and it's horrific.
The people he marches on to death for no good reason, seemingly.
Yeah. So, I think the factor that complicates your argument is Harry Dresden, right? And Harry is essentially the unknown quantity in any situation, right? And through his actions in declaring war unilaterally on the Red Court, he has proven to the entire supernatural community that he is essentially not to be fucked with. Right?
Yeah.
So if you're Lara Raith, and for some reason all magical activity in the world happens in Chicago, Harry Dresden is resident in Chicago, you are going to want him to not think of you as that scary. So you're going to comport yourself in such a way as to end up as, I quote, my favourite frenemy. Right, because anything else results in you being deleted.
Oh, come on, the first time they meet, she shoots him in the ear.
Yeah, that's quite funny.
She clearly couldn't give two fucks about who Harry Dresden is. No, but it's interesting because Harry Dresden is almost the sort of antithesis to pragmatism when it comes to making sacrifice, right? It's why essentially he doesn't get along with anyone else in the bloody books who's in any position of power. Because people know that in order to run an organization, there is a level of for the greater good. The White Council sees it, the White Court sees it, Harry doesn't see it.
I think I just fundamentally disagree with that. It implies a sort of zero-sum game to power that I don't think is there. This idea that
it doesn't imply that at all. But I mean, you finish your thought. But you're wrong.
So if you look at the war with the Red Court, right? Harry is castigated for starting the war with the Red Court. When if you look at it from any one of a number of moral philosophies, it was the right thing to do. From a utilitarian perspective, it perhaps wasn't, but that then comes down to how one defines utility. But sort of from a far greater range of just it was the right thing to do, because the alternative was allowing an innocent woman to die, which is objectively wrong.
Yeah, and admittedly, the White Council fails because they either don't have the whole story or they don't want to believe the whole story, but like it's quite clearly a setup.
Yes.
I mean, I guess they do know that, they just don't have a publicly.
I think the war does highlight, or the situation in Bianca's mansion does highlight a sort of fundamental flaw in the Unseal Your Cords, which is actually something I'd quite like to talk about at another juncture.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
Because I think they're pretty fundamentally flawed by not looking at the spirit of actions and dealing only with the letter of the law. But
that's probably because the interpretations of that nature must be really hard to standardize across different
I'm sure
kinds of being. But yeah, that's a different debate. The reason why I don't think it's a zero-sum game, just to say, well, the arguably best solution in this particular scenario is to sacrifice someone or multiple some things if it preserves a better balance.
But
right,
look at the events of lives.
But look at the events of Chichen Itza, for example.
Yes,
is it genuinely a good course of action to send potentially 500 wizards to their death to save one little girl?
Yes.
As a sort of, from an emotional point of view, absolutely. But from a practical point of view, no, because those 500 wizards will die. The little girl will die as a result. And as a result of all the wizards being gone, many, many more little girls will die.
No, the fight itself is worthwhile. I just fundamentally disagree.
That's interesting.
I understand what you're saying, but sort of, sometimes you just need to draw a line and say no here, but no further.
I think you're right. The fight itself is worthwhile, but the fight itself is worthwhile should never apply to everyone.
What do you mean?
Then the fight will be over very quickly. I think organizations like the White Council live fully in the knowledge that there are Harry Dresdens in the world who will just go out there and fight the good fight. And if they win, fantastic. If they don't win, it doesn't fundamentally change your original plan. And, secretly they know that Harry Dresden packs a bit of a punch. So odds are he would succeed in any plan he forms.
But I don't think that moves the moral calculus.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is the moral calculus is second to the much more important calculus of just the numbers.
I think that's potentially where you and I just will never agree.
No, quite.
because you are absolutely right. From a practical perspective, Chichen Itza is a bad idea. Right? The fight at Chichen Itza is a bad idea. It should not be done.
Yes. From
a purely practical perspective, you run the risk of throwing away your Starborn. You run the risk of losing Leah, who is clearly very important. You run the risk of losing Mouse, who is clearly very important. And ultimately, whoever is on the Grey Council as well, you run the risk of losing.
So the use of the word important there with reference to Leah is quite interesting. Because would you consider Lara Raith important? Or is she just a monster?
I think you can have important monsters. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive.
But would you seek to preserve Lara's life?
Would I
seek in danger?
Would I personally seek to preserve Lara's life? I think so.
All right.
Even though she's a monster, because deep down inside, I like to believe that I am Michael Carpenter.
Well, that is the most outrageous thing I think anyone will ever say on this show. I think we have our tinfoil, ladies and gentlemen.
I'll give you that one. No, more seriously,
we should all strive to be Michael Carpenter.
Maybe that's that's more the point. In every situation, I ask, what would Michael do? But I think that preserving Lara's life gives her the opportunity to try and be a better person, and I think that is valuable.
So you're calling her a person, which is in and of itself is quite interesting.
She is a person.
I feel going into this, you almost asserted that white core vampires aren't people.
I think she's a person. She's not human.
Part human, I guess. Difficult to qualify.
It's difficult to qualify.
No, but you're right. This is something that we'll never really fully agree on, and
I think that's
we
perhaps
judge this from a distance, right?
I think that's perhaps why we're never going to agree on Lara either, because I think you can make the case that from a practical perspective, she is better. Well, she's objectively better than Papa Raith because he's a sadistic monster. But I think you can make the case that from a practical perspective, she's probably quite high up on the list of like effective rulers of supernatural nations.
High up in terms of moral depravity,
utility,
right?
Yeah,
if
it takes like a pretty staunchly Benthamite view of utilitarianism, essentially the greatest good for the greatest number, and we can break that down into actual numbers.
Sure, yeah. So perhaps you're not entirely wrong about that. What I would say is that it's all relative, and we see, and I would think that it's really hard to disagree with this. Is that in the grand scheme of White Court vampires, the Wraiths in general, actually excluding Papa Raith, at least the ones we meet, with the exception of Madrigal and Madeline, they don't seem to be nearly as bad as the others, the Scavis, the Malvora. And Lara, I think, on top of that, no, of course, we see her more than anyone else, really, except for Thomas, who is probably the pinnacle of goodness in the White Court. So, but Lara, I think, relatively is up there. And I think that's important to remember, because when we look at all humans, right, it's not that every single one of us is this amazingly good, humane person. There's absolute dickheads in the world. Frankly, there's way too many.
There's at least one on this podcast.
I'm glad you know it yourself. But my point largely is that, yeah, Lara Raith is certainly relatively a very good individual. I mean, because it's hard to overcome your own nature. I mean, we see Thomas struggle with it. We see Harry struggle. We see everyone struggle with it. And I think I'd struggle with it if I had a genuine demon like that. You know, it's tough.
But I come back to, we don't see Lara struggle with it, and maybe it's because we're never in her head. Maybe it's because we're never in her head.
Yeah. We don't see her struggle with it. But we also don't see, just mowing down lots of people like I'm sure the Scavis Malvora would. Although she does, as you say, use them to do kind of that.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I'm not sure I'm going to just let the Wraiths are better than the Malvoras and the Scavis go without a fight.
All right.
Do we not just see the Madrigal Wraith equivalent of the Scavis and the Malvora? Right, and Madrigal is clearly just batshit insane, would be a psycho if he was human, never mind a vampire.
Yeah, but I've always, in my headcanon, explained that by the fact that he just hangs around with the Scavis and the Malvora, he hangs around with the Malvora, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Scavis is the
Malvora, yeah. Scavis is the cat.
The woman, yeah. The woman who's not in fact a woman.
Or
is that vampire woman?
No, it's a man. It's the son of Lord. It's the son of Lord Scavis, but he looks a bit effeminate and then dresses as a woman.
Blasted to bits by Elaine. That's great.
Yeah, it just gets deleted by Elaine. But no.
But this is kind of a moot point, I think, because we essentially just don't see enough of anyone other than
Thomas and Lara.
Thomas, yeah,
and for one book in Ari.
And I guess Madeline, but she's Black Council.
She's summon. She's something.
I mean, and I guess also is Vittorio and Madrigal, I guess. Well, certainly
think
Vitora seems to be magical. Is sort of
Vittorio
Vitora's
is
pitch.
implied to be Black Council.
Yeah.
Madrigal, I don't think is. Madeline, I think, might work for someone who's Black Council.
Well, not anymore.
Well, not anymore. She got Lara'd.
She got very Lara'd. I mean, don't piss her off, but that should kind of go without saying. So, you don't throw a grenade at Harry Dresden and live to tell the tale.
No. So, I guess there's a couple last points that you shared that I perhaps want to discuss. Firstly, I thought it was really funny that in talking about the Oblivion War, you said that she helps us be safe in our beds. When, let's be honest, in bed is the place you are least safe from Lara.
Well, perhaps.
Sorry, that joke's just been crying out from my page for like 40 minutes.
I mean, I didn't say safe in our beds while she is also there.
No, I just
although in many ways you would still be quite safe as long as you didn't lose your eyes or break your legs.
I just needed to get that joke in. But then
it is good. It is good.
Lastly, you use Mab as evidence for her being a good person.
Go here.
Right. So I think my simplistic answer to that is going to be yes and no. Because I don't know that Mab views humanity as anything other than chattel either. Like, her job is to protect humanity. That doesn't mean she values humanity. She values her job.
See, this is interesting because I feel you've said this before.
But I don't. I think it's quite fundamental to the Fae that you can't analyze their morality on any human axis.
No, but again, and this is the argument that I've been trying to make for ages, is that you're so human focused. Like, why is Mab's job to protect humanity? It's just to protect the world in general.
Okay, Mab's job
humanity
is to protect reality.
To be a part of that.
Mab's job is to protect
as well.
Reality. All right.
Yeah, she's a weird one, but ultimately she's an arbiter of justice, if nothing else. And we have to say that people in that position, they've got to have something going for them.
I don't know that she's an arbiter of justice of anything other than winter law. She doesn't appear to arbitrate moral justice.
Yeah, but I mean, everyone's subscribed to winter law, though.
Yeah, that's because Mab's the one with the biggest stick.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, if Summer said, no, fuck this jazz, I'm sure people would have said, well, yeah, we kind of agree with that. They seem a lot nicer than these winter folks.
Mab is also a creature of pure rationality, which if you're applying laws that have no scope for spirit and are purely down to the letter, you want an arbiter of pure rationality.
Yeah, but this is also the point that I was kind of trying to make, is that that's exactly the reason why her seal of approval means something. Right? To her, it is a sort of zero-sum game. Like, it's pure calculating logic. She knows she's put in a lot of time and effort to get Harry on.
Yes.
Not on her side, because I'm not sure that's necessarily the right thing to say.
In her camp.
In her camp. And so, for whatever reason that she ultimately decides that Harry should marry Lara, she must have calculated the risks of that and has decided that ultimately it's okay. That's got to tell you something about the fact that Lara Raith is clearly not some sort of demented monster.
Either that or it tells me that Mab is fully aware that Lara Raith isn't going to do anything to piss off Mab. Which, let's be fair...
Well...
I don't think...
It's funny, actually. I've been rereading sort of the stuff post-Arctis Tour, the attack on Arctis Tour.
Yeah.
Mab is angry for a really long time.
She's really angry for a long time. It's very funny.
It's bad, isn't it? Anyway,
I don't think you can point to Queen, as Harry regularly refers to her, Queen of the Wicked Fairies, Queen of Air and Darkness.
Yes, but you cannot use Harry as an example for anything because he doesn't know what he's saying half the bloody time. He's an idiot.
No, true. Even so, I don't think you can use the Queen of Air and Darkness. Someone who herself states that she is a being of pure reason.
Yes, a woman after my own heart.
as evidence that Lara Raith is a good person.
Well, I feel like I did.
Yes, but you were wrong to do so.
Yes, that's exactly the sort of talk an emotional kind like yourself would come up with.
No, I'm not having it. I'm not having it. We've spoken bullshit.
I feel you had a few more concerns.
I've got lots of just scribbles. I wrote down that you said she's a good person by any meaningful standard of morality, and then I threw up on my page.
Good.
The
truth hurts sometimes.
She's not a good person by any meaningful standard of morality. She's a good person by your very specific standard of morality, which you've essentially chosen and then defined so as to make her a good person.
She freely gives her help to virtually anyone who needs it.
She does not.
Molly and Harry, Thomas.
Thomas is her brother.
She even helps Michael at some point, I think, doesn't she? She even keeps Ebenezer's secrets to herself.
Okay, that is absolutely from a position of practicality rather than anything else. Sorry, this was the one that I haven't done yet. So it's a distinction between territoriality and self-interest and love. You said repeatedly that Lara Raith is capable of love, and that may be true. I'm not going to assert that is not true, because we see something approaching familial care for her family. Right, it's the quote about she changed Thomas's nappies and all of that.
Something approaching familial care. Wow. You've got high standards?
Yeah, apparently so. I'm learning that about myself this evening. But I don't think you can point to things like she doesn't tell the world that Ebenezer is Harry's grandfather as evidence that she is altruistic. It's evidence that she has self-interest. She starts telling the world that Ebenezer is Harry's grandfather. Ebenezer will remove her from the face of the earth. Look at what he did to Casa Verde.
Sure, he can try. But that's a separate
Look
argument.
at what he did to Casa Verde.
No, and of course there is an argument to make that perhaps was some sort of political ploy, but she's shown herself to be a very shrewd operator, and it's entirely because Ebenezer didn't know, right, that Thomas was his grandson, and so she could have very easily made the right people aware of this information, and gone from there.
But where is her benefit?
But it's for me, it was more the sort of the passage that she has. That bit where she talks to Dresden about all this, there's just something in her tone of voice, well, in reading, that suggests that there's a little more to it than
James Marsters does her justice, does he?
He does indeed. Yeah, and obviously, I mean, you could argue this ad absurdum that obviously she's doing that because she knows Harry, etc., etc. But I choose to believe the mortal man with free will that I am, that there's a bit more to it than just the cool calculating logic. She's not a map.
No, I don't think she's a map. I think that, as I said, I think there is something approaching familial care for Thomas and Inari. We see that, right? And she clearly wants Inari to be safe, but we also never see Lara interact with Inari outside once Lara is out with the control of Papa Raith, I don't believe.
No, we don't see Inari at all after that, do we?
I don't think so. No. She might be in one of the short stories.
Maybe. I was actually thinking about this the other day, because even Thomas just never mentions her. It's like she's just died. It's really strange.
Very bizarre. But a lot of the things that you point to, I think, are political power grabs that also make her look good, rather than being altruistic acts.
See, that's because you choose to see the worst in people, whereas I'm a positive soul.
No one has ever accused you of being a positive soul, ever. Don't try and take this now.
Yeah, I'm sure it has happened at some point.
I don't know what else I have, really. The Oblivion War, I will grant you, is problematic, but one, I don't think we can point to the judgment of a 14-year-old girl as evidence that someone is a good person, especially not a quite so psychologically screwed up 14-year-old girl as Ivy.
No, but we've met Ivy, and she does seem to just be... Well, obviously, she's the archive, which must be complicated beyond belief.
Yes.
But she seems to be, a very sweet-hearted girl, where you might expect anyone at that age to be. No, I mean, I'm not going to say that because she's a 14-year-old girl, therefore de facto anyone she judges worthy is worthy. No,
No,
not at all. But I think she's
I also
innocent
think
enough to sort of perhaps have an opinion on if people are genuinely terrible.
no, I also think in prosecuting the Oblivion War, the archive does appear to take a very practical stance, and by any reasonable metric, Lara is practically a useful asset in the Oblivion War. Right, but
it's really funny that you're arguing on the sort of full practicality here. Now,
no, I'm making the case that practicality does not equal good.
I mean, well, it 100% is. Obviously.
No.
Well, I mean, okay, but it does not necessarily have to preclude.
No, but I don't think. I think her participation in the Oblivion War is neutral, right? Because the Oblivion War, if they lose it, everything stops. That's why it's called the Oblivion War.
Yes, quite.
It's another version of the battle at the Outer Gates.
But that line of reasoning, and it is absolutely correct, makes everything really complicated, right? Because then we have to start arguing for whether or not Nicodemus is ultimately on the good or the bad side. He's obviously a terrible, terrible person, but still fighting on the side of reality because everyone else is, because that's kind of a thing.
but I think that's my point. Nicodemus isn't turned into a good person because he's fighting to preserve reality.
No, exactly. But
his methods matter, and his reasons matter.
But his reasons and his methods are demonstrably heinous. Whereas Lara's less so, and that's the entire thing that I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, no. I'm not putting Lara on the same footing as Nicodemus. Nicodemus is demonstrably.
You're going to say pedestal for a second.
Atrociously evil. But
atrociously evil, I like that.
But you basically asserted she's fighting in the Oblivion War, and that's run by the Archive, and Ivy's a 14-year-old girl, and therefore Lara's good. And I'm just pointing out that there is no causal link between those things.
No, but do you not feel safer in your bed knowing that Lara Raith is out there in the fictional universe of the Dresden Files?
No, because I don't know about the Oblivion War.
Well, maybe precisely for this reason.
No.
I mean, if there is an Oblivion War, I hope that we either win or that it's over very quickly.
Yeah, we either win or we lose really fast.
Exactly, yeah.
I think I'd just like to leave us with a quote from Lara herself, because really, push comes to shove, we see the most in people when we hear them in their own words. I'm glad to see you survived, wizard. You who destroyed my father and secured my own power. You who have now destroyed my enemies. You are the most marvelous weapon I have ever wielded. And I love peace, wizard. I love talking, laughing, relaxing. I will kill your folk with peace, wizard. I will strangle them with it. And they will thank me while I do. Yeah, she sounds lovely.
Yeah, she loves peace. Are you objecting to someone who loves peace?
I will kill your folk with peace.
Yeah, what does folk mean once you've translated it from ancient Etruscan?
She's not speaking in ancient Etruscan, though.
We don't know that, man. The whole point with this quote is, right? Again, this is Harry being an unreliable narrator. He has just come out of a cave that blew up with him in it, kissing a vampire, having just suffered serious brain damage, having had a fallen angel ripped from his head.
Absolutely fucking not. You're not
and he winds up this poor white court vampire who helped him, made sure he survived, winds her up. And so what does she do? She lashes out a bit. I mean, wouldn't you? I would.
I'm not having this. You're not taking away this quote.
I 100% am.
That quote is Lara Raith to her core.
No, it's Lara Raith to the core of Harry's belief of what she is.
There's sometimes there's just no arguing with you. Your grasp of reality is unmatched in its weakness.
Hey, look, there's only one of us who makes a living from studying reality, so...
That's just even more concerning.
You don't know, man. You're not there.
You've not seen the things I've seen.
You've not seen the things I've seen, exactly.
I think, yeah, I don't think I've got anything else. I think if you hear that quote and don't think that Lara Raith is a terrifying example of someone who views humanity as cattle to be controlled and has just worked out that the easiest way to control people is to give them what they want, then I don't think there's anywhere we can meaningfully go from here.
If she says this to me just randomly on the street when I'm walking by her, yes, 100% agree. But she doesn't say that, does she? She does it because Harry is an absolute prick at the best of times, and he just needles people.
Because Harry holds people to the same high standards he holds himself.
Oh, yeah, Harry, I've just committed genocide in Chichen Itza, Dresden, sure.
Yeah, all right. Admittedly, there's something about Chichen Itza that's a little bit problematic.
Save one girl, wipe out an entire race of things.
And then justify it to myself constantly by saying they were all murderers.
They were all bad, they were all murderers. I mean, they're probably on balance, well, at least the ones that we've met. The Red Court's something else.
Never met a good Red Court vampire.
It's probably an argument to be made that the Black Court's better in many ways.
I'm not sure there's much legs to that. We don't know enough about that.
Although Renfield's a pretty dreadful.
Yeah, Renfields aren't good. Renfield's very not
maybe
good.
That's not right. The Black Court's probably the worst of the lot. Renfield's very much not good, no. Well, although there's none of their mind left, so maybe that's a kindness in some ways.
One imagines that what you do to strip the mind from a Renfield isn't particularly
it's not
pleasant.
going to be fun, is it? It's not going to be fun. This is the thing with the White Court, at least. Well, certainly with the Wraith family, it's a fun way to go. Wouldn't want to meet a Scavis. They're the ones who do things by despair, don't they?
I'm just so wildly optimistic. I don't think I'm susceptible to a Scavis. Can't break through this sunny exterior.
You are Uriel himself.
Gosh, I've received a promotion from Michael.
Yeah, absolute lunacy saying something like that. Crazy. I mean, Michael is better than Uriel in all ways.
No, he is. That's just objectively true.
Well, the fun thing about this, as opposed to a hot take on something like Lord of the Rings, although actually saying that Lord of the Rings, well, not less so now that Christopher's unfortunately passed away, but new stuff is coming out there as well. This can develop, exactly.
This can develop.
There's more to come.
I suspect
we will see how right I was at some point.
I suspect we'll see a lot more of Lara in 12 months.
She
the book 12
herself
months
for no gain.
Yes, fine. If Lara Raith self-sacrifices for no gain, for no other reason than to protect someone that she loves, you know what? I'll wear that tinfoil when it happens.
I shall hold you to that. I mean, it's not going to be for many years, I think, because there's what, 6 books left at least? No,
something like that.
I think.
Something like that. I think it's a 25-book series now, and his Battlegrounds was 18.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he's also said that it would continue after the big apocalyptic trilogy, which...
Well, that's a spoiler.
Yeah, but then this is Meta Jim, you know? You only believe it when it serves its purpose.
I think it's absolutely true. I think the big thing was that he said he wants to write a Maggie and Mouse series, like a young adult series, fun, Maggie and Mouse, which would be really fun.
And of course, he can do a classic MCU and just set it in a fake place where everyone's actually dead.
Just multiverse it, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, indeed.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Expertise is Overrated. No doubt, we've said some things that were either objectively wrong or downright offensive. Feel free to let us know. Rate the podcast and leave us a comment, or drop us an email at expertiseisoverrated@gmail.com. Tweet us at @ZeroExpertise. Check out our website, expertiseisoverrated.podbean.com, or join our Discord, the link for which is in the description.
Yes, please do. It'll be fun, we promise. If you're lucky, we might just argue with you in one of our upcoming episodes. If you're really lucky, we might call you an idiot. In our next episode, we're going to be discussing the Chaos Gods in the Warhammer and 40k universes, and what their deal is. Join us then for more nonsense.